First item on our agenda is the invocation and pledge of allegiance led by students from Brooklyn Casey. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Key.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome Mary and Carly. Told them to tread light on them, I didn't. But first of all, we got Mary Ann Schaefer. She can do the invocation. Mary is a senior at Brooklyn Casey High School, where she has a 4.8 GPA. She is a Palmetto Fellow Scholarship recipient and serves as president of the National Honor Society. Mary is also a member of the Math Honor Society, the FCA, the Latin Honor Society, and HOSA. She served as the captain of the varsity spirit and competition cheerleading team and has been a member of the cheerleading group for the past 6 years. Mary plans to attend Clemson in the fall as a political science major and math minor. She hopes to find a career in pharmaceutical sales after college. Carly John Baker will do our Pledge of Allegiance. Carly is a senior at BC, where she maintains a 4.8 GPA. She is a Quest student, a member of the Math Honor Society, National Honor Society, and Latin Club. Carly was named an AP Scholar and is an AP Capstone Diploma recipient. She is on BC swim team and served as captain her junior and senior years. She is also on a summer league swim team and a year-round swim club team. She is very involved with her church youth group and statewide youth group for Lutherans. Carly had the honor to be a Midlands Conference representative and currently serves as the chaplain of the statewide Lutheran youth group. Carly plans to attend College of Charleston to study international business and finance.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all the blessings you have gifted each and every person in this room. As you bring us here today, please help us to better ourselves and our schools. We thank you for completing our work, and we ask you to continue to push us to be the best we can. Today and every day, we choose to praise you and thank you for all your promises in our lives. Ask that you place your hands on all the board members' hearts tonight and help them to look to the future. Ask that you bring unity to this board, district, and community. Help us all to set aside our differences and look to what is best for our students and schools. Ask that you help us all be a blessing and encouragement to everyone and bring glory to you in all we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Without objection, the consent agenda will stand approved. We move to public participation period. Do we have any? There are no requests. No requests for public participation. Next is reports of honors and accomplishments of students and staff. Dr. James.
We don't have any students or staff to bring tonight, but we would call your attention to the honors and accomplishments and the things that have gone on in the district in February. Had a good number of really successful events for students in the district. You have a copy of that, and we posted it on the website.
Do you want to make any comment about the luncheon we had yesterday regarding our attendance?
Well, I had not planned to, but I will, because we're really proud of that. We had almost 100 of our employees. We did not get our bus drivers because they were taking our children home. We will do a luncheon with them at a later date, but we felt it would be good to kind of have a day to highlight those folks who had not missed any time from work. Represented about 20 to 25% of our teaching staff. We had a really nice luncheon, and we capped it off with Joni's folks making the best cake I ever saw in my life. So, anyway, thank you, sir, for that.
Next up is unfinished business, and we don't have any, so we move to new business where we got a whole boatload. First item is discussion of policies on fundraising and online fundraising. Dr. James.
Yes, sir. As I informed the board, I had a request from a parent about using internet fundraiser. Board doesn't have any policy related to internet fundraising, but the board has a good number of policies related to fundraising in general, and I have given you a summary of that. The approval process, the frequency, the types and purposes of fundraisers, and the use of facilities as fundraisers. So at this time, our recommendation is that the board has policies in place that the internet is just another vehicle. It doesn't impact it one way or the other as long as fundraising activity meets those other criteria. If the board at some point in time chooses to change the policy, then certainly we will do whatever research you ask.
Okay. Anybody have anything they want to discuss regarding these policies? Is there any motions they want to make?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
After reviewing the current policy, I make a motion to table the topic of fundraising until the April 25th board meeting. I would like to request that we be presented recommendations and comments from each school, principal, teacher, coach, activity leader, or booster club that wishes to submit to us. Any feedback would need to be sent by email to the district office by the end of March, so there's time to review and make recommendations before the April board meeting. I would like to ask, we also be presented fundraising policy from neighboring districts for review. If after these items have been reviewed and the recommendation is to revise the current policy, I would ask that the policy be presented to the board by April 8th. At that time, if the board feels like we need to discuss in a workshop format, I would request that we have a workshop no later than April 11th. The current policy is good and detailed, but being over 20 years old, I feel like we should take the time to further research this topic to see if our policy needs to be revised.
And I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion which is very detailed with regard to dates, times. Give me just a minute. Let me make sure that we don't have to kind of break this up a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, while you're reading, can I please just say, when I was looking, I did notice they're kind of 20 years old and the internet grows leaps and bounds every 6 months, much less than 20 years. And I do think that it warrants us at least setting aside a committee or some type of, and include, all of our stakeholders, and let's just really look at our fundraising policies, because I think one thing says only one a year, and I think we do more than that. And let's look at all of it, figure out what it is that our schools need, and where the internet is now. Let's look at what other districts are doing and maybe try to incorporate all that into a report or something, because I think that we need to look at this policy.
What I would like to try to do with this motion, it's very clear that you want to take the topic up at the April 25th board meeting. However, there's some interim dates you've also got in here that may be, we don't know yet what our schedules are with regard to saying we have a workshop no later than 11th, but we got to get the policy by the 8th, so I don't know that those dates all work. Are they?
By those dates, not necessarily. And we can, anybody can say, it's too quick or, but, if we're trying, I was trying to meet the April 25th meeting, and if we are going to try to do that, then we have to have some kind of plan to get to that point.
Mr. Bingham, is there a reason why they couldn't be tweaked as we go along? It's really a well-written proposal, and it addresses, I think, all the issues that we need to be looking at. So I realize that there may be some conflicts, but can that not be taken care of if we foresee a conflict later on in this process?
We will try to do it that way. So we've got a motion and a second, so discussion on the motion.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's very well written.
So saying that, what you just mentioned a while ago, the question I have is, he said adjusting along the way, and I think Christina was open to that. Because it is a lot of information
It's a lot of different.
in several different locations in our policy, and to try to streamline that, and then at some point, as Cindy said, I guess those dates could move. I'm good with it.
Okay.
And it did sound to me, I think that she was given minimum dates, so like, perhaps it should be before that, so that the comment, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but what I'm saying is maybe she had a reason for those specific dates, just as deadlines. So maybe y'all, Dr. James, y'all make it do April 1st, or whatever y'all need to do, you know what I'm saying? But I think just a committee to examine it would be a bad idea. It's 1997 policy.
Well, and we will do whatever the board asks. The issue is not the vehicle. It's the policy. You brought up the idea that the policy says one fundraiser a year, and that's exactly right. As far as the internet, there's no policy against using the internet. And there's some forms of the internet that are perfectly acceptable under board policy. What it does say is that you can't solicit funds directly for extracurricular activities or basic needs, but it doesn't limit that to the internet. I mean, that could mean just sending postcards. So we'll search out, we'll get the policies from the neighboring districts and give you as much information as we can find in accordance with those dates. I mean, that's not an issue.
I just know that I get a lot of requests from other people in other districts, and so I think other districts may have some vehicle that they're using to allow it. And I mean, I'd much rather just donate my $25 or whatever directly to a kid or a kid's program rather than get some chocolates or wrapping paper that I may or may not use. So, I think that's kind of the idea behind it, is to get the money straight to the people rather than have some stuff, that you can't really use.
And from an administrative standpoint, we don't mind. We just,
Oh, there's this.
whatever policy is.
Dr. James, we have looked at this policy since then, because I wasn't on the board then. We have looked through this and approved this since '97.
And let's guess what, I could be wrong, I referenced 1996, 97 policies, because that's what they have online for us, but,
We did,
Yes, we have.
she's right, but we didn't, I don't think we addressed internet.
We didn't, but I just want him to know that we have looked at this policy since '97.
So with the timing, then, I mean, even, we would have something, if any adjustments or changes are made, introduced in the new school year, moving forward.
Well, potentially, if we got it done by April, whatever, the April meeting, then any school things going forward, summer teams and all that, getting ready to
Sure.
practice and uniforms and all that.
I was just thinking of, I think, a little bit further down, if we needed to, if we needed time.
It's not better to change policy in mid-year. It's better to start at the beginning of the school year than it is mid-year.
Maybe that could, I don't know how, if that could be the effective date is, end of the school year.
Well,
But that could be discussed later.
at this point, we're just saying you're gonna table this until the 25th. And then you've got the other part of that you want these other things on different dates. So we're just putting all that in one motion. What happens on 25th will be whatever happens on
Right,
25th
true.
with regard to how the board enacts the policy, if there's any change to the policy, or if there would be any, say it won't become effective until a certain date. So we won't worry about that until the 25th board meeting based upon this motion. I think does anybody else have any? I think in the interim, we just need to understand and read the policies that exist and make sure that you're clear, because I think Dr. James is absolutely correct. There's nothing in here that precludes internet fundraising. What it says is no direct fundraising. So you can't ask for money without something being given in return. Tickets to a event, candy, wrapping paper or whatever. That's the way the policy's written. So the direct fundraising, it doesn't mean you can't do anything online, but you also can't go set up a table at Walmart and ask for kids to just say, give me money. I mean, that's a violation of the policy, no different than whatever these other fundraising means work. So I think the key will be for board members to review the policy and determine what do you think is an appropriate way in order to be done. Review why it looks like it was done the way it was, and if you think it really needs to be changed, and what could be the consequences to those changes. So until we get to that discussion, I think you need to be thinking about those things. So we have a motion and a second to table this till the 25th. Is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to give this motion to the secretary so she can put it in the record. Since it's kind of long and I don't know whether she got it all. All right, our next item of business is consideration of request for out-of-state travel for testing and quality control coordinator and the Power School coordinator to the Power School Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, July 7th through 11th of this year.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the out-of-state personnel travel using the general fund monies.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Wood. Discussion?
Actually, I'd like to amend that motion and say we approve B, C, and D out-of-state travel for the three. Take them as a group.
Okay, items B, C, and D.
You okay with that as just being the motion?
Yeah.
You second?
And I'll
Okay.
second all of that.
So we've got a motion and a second to take items B, C, and D, all as one, to approve the out-of-state travel for all three of those items. Yeah, I had a motion and a second, so any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is the consideration of a request to drop the beds code for the Congaree Wood Early Childhood Center. Dr. James.
Yes, sir, we put some information for the board in this package. Right now, at Wood Elementary and Congaree Wood, basically we have Leonard and his staff operating as two separate schools. So everything, every report that has to go in at the state and federal level, they're doing that twice. Leonard and I have talked about this several times. For us, it makes life much easier for Leonard and his staff not to have to do that. We've talked to the State Department. The first step in getting that corrected is the board approving our asking to drop the beds code for Congaree Wood Early Childhood Center. If the board votes in favor of that, we'll submit that to the State Department of Education, and it will fall under the bed code of Wood Elementary.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve administration's recommendation to drop the beds program code at Congaree Wood Early Childhood Center.
We got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rucker. Is there any discussion?
My only concern is that we set up that early childhood center as a feeder of both Wood and Congaree. Are we messing with that identity of?
We're not changing the attendance patterns at all. The kids will still, the Congaree kids will still go to Congaree, and the Wood kids will still go to Wood. And actually, the beds code there has no bearing on that because we have children leaving one school and going to another throughout the district. So the issue is, well, first and foremost, when Leonard got there, one of the things he and I talked about is the fact that it functions as two entirely separate schools and almost like two separate faculties and groups of kids. Then beyond that, beyond the affective realm there, then you get into the logistics and everything that you do. Title I, any reports to the State Department, any federal reports, all of that goes in twice. So you've got basically the same amount of staff that you would have at Riverbank or Casey, but they're doing twice the paperwork that they're doing, and there's just not a really good statistical reason for that I see.
And I don't know if I won't put Frida on the spot, but she can get back to us, but is there any unintended consequences of doing that from the state report card perspective or something? You know what I'm saying?
Not that I'm aware of.
Ms. Brown, there was a point in time where lots of school districts had preschool K-1-2 because they weren't tested grades, and so they didn't impact the report card. But the report card has changed. We hadn't had a report card in probably 5 years now, and the new report card doesn't reflect that. They still don't test until the 3rd grade. So K-1-2 is not going to make any difference on wood that they don't already make, and they're not going to make any difference on concrete that they don't already make. And a report card at primary school is not really a relevant issue. So if that were the reason that the board separated them years ago, that report card methodology has changed over the years. So I don't see that being an issue.
Any other questions? Dr. James, I've got one. Even though the beds code changed, do we have to change the name, so to speak, of the school? Or does it?
Officially, the name would be Wood Elementary, since it's under Wood Elementary bed code. Do we have to change the name on the building and that sort of thing? No. But if we go to one bed code, it will be one school.
One school in the eyes of the State Department.
Right.
But as far as us, this can still be the early childhood.
It could be,
Wood Elementary.
we could call it anything we want to among ourselves, but in the eyes of the State Department, it would be Wood Elementary. Yes, sir.
Well, I think the question, I'm sorry. I think the question that he kind of asked goes to the, like, for instance, if a newsletter comes out, are we going to have a separate newsletter for the early childhood parents from the Wood parents?
Well, that'd be up to Leonard, but I don't think that, were I a parent there, my idea would be I would want to know what's going on throughout the school. So I'm assuming that, Leonard would have a newsletter that had all the things that were happening in the primary grades as well as the elementary grades. But Leonard, you're sitting there, you got any thought on that?
Well, right now, we currently have 2, but my idea would be to combine the 2 together, because we combined a whole lot of stuff out there already that were split, and then that way the parents, because we have parents on the Civic side and they have children on the Wood side. So everybody, instead of getting 2 newsletters, you get 1 newsletter instead of having to read two items.
And I see that, I just don't want some unintended consequences of, they've been getting 1 newsletter, they're part of Wood all the way up till 3rd grade, and then, okay, these kids get to stay, these kids have to go. That's what I'm kind of just wanting to avoid. That we keep a little bit, maybe even if you, and I'm not going to do your job for you, but just a thought, maybe have a section for early childhood people, and just so they know in their mind they're not all going to stay.
Well, we formed committees since I've been there, and our process has been on unity as far as getting both of those schools to be unified, to be able to, they had 2 different visions, 2 different missions when we first got there. Now we have 1 mission, 1 vision. And so we have committees that actually work together, and we place the 2 schools together. Because believe it or not, we have people that would get lost, go from the Civic side to the Wood side, they would literally get lost in the building, and they've been there over 10 years. So the thing has been, well, I know we're 2 schools, but we will function as 1 school. So we're bringing those 2 sides together, and that's what we've been working on since we got there. If you look at our PTO, if you look at our shirt, we had 2 different shirts. Now we have 1 shirt with owl and eagle. So we've been moving in the direction of functioning as 1.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the request to drop the beds code in concrete wood. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda, items F through X are all dealing with contracts for purchase of various things. I'm going to ask the board, without objection, that we'll consider them all in one motion as opposed to taking about 15 motions individually. And so what I would do is ask for a motion to approve these. We'll be able to, once we get the motion on the floor, you'll be able to ask questions for any of the items that are there. I just would like to do it in the form of a single motion as opposed to 15 motions in seconds.
Isn't F a separate item? Yeah.
Excuse me, yeah, it should be G through X. So we got to take up F first.
So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the donation of West Columbia Fire Department to give us some firefighting equipment, and then we thank them profusely, and maybe have the students write them some thank you notes or something, because that's a really big gift.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the donation for the firefighting equipment. Do I have any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now I would entertain a motion for items G through X.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for contract services of items G through X.
Okay, we have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Keith. All right, so now we've got a motion and a second, we're open for discussion. So any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
On N, do you know the amount?
I actually have several amounts that I need to give you. If you want to write them down,
Yes, sir.
I'll just go for them all.
N.
Can I start with H?
Absolutely.
All right, for H, we need to award that to contract construction in the amount of $881,843. For item I, you've got the information there.
Yes.
For M, we need to modify that number from $33,453 to $37,258. For item N, we need to award that, we're asking that you award that contract to Thompson Turner in the amount of $221,433.
Would you repeat that amount, please, Don?
$221,433. For item S, we'd like to ask that you award that to First Class Construction in the amount of $58,860. Item W, we'd like to ask that you award that to Triangle Safe and Lock Company in the amount of $22,355. That's all of the updates.
Mr. Chairman. And I guess just from a point of order, I almost feel as if we should pull out G from that list, because G was actually a recommendation of the committee, and if it comes from a board committee, I don't even believe it needs a second, it just needs a vote. But since it's actually not a building project, it actually deals with our audit services, I think from a
Yes, you are
perspective,
correct.
we need
I'm
G to
sorry.
be separate, so.
I'm sorry, I looked at too many consideration of.
I like what you were trying to do, you were trying to shorten it up for us, but.
So what we'll do is, it'll be H through whatever, we'll come back to G as soon as we get this, okay? You're correct. All right, any further discussions? For the record, I'm going to try to read through each item the contractor and the amount so that it is in the record with regard to what each of these items are. So we would have H is the re-roofing to contract construction in the amount of $881,843. I would be Hoyt's Heating and Air Conditioning in the amount of $240,000. J would be Bonnets in the amount of $49,786. K would be Troxel Communications in the amount of $60,198. L would be Thompson Turner in the amount of $170,163. M would be Thompson Turner in the amount of $36,258. N would be Thompson Turner in the amount of $221,433. O would be to Troxel Communications in the amount of $23,304. P would be A3 Communications in the amount of $39,188. Q would be Troxel Communication in the amount of $32,866. R would be Thompson Turner in the amount of $8,000. S would be First Class Construction in the amount of $58,860. T would be A3 Communications in the amount of $13,326. U would be,
Just asking,
did you give me U?
just asking that we modify you to where that we're going to take down that whole building rather than trying to save the
Okay,
gym.
U would be the modified to take down the whole building instead of the complete demolition.
We're just asking to change the plans there. We've reconsidered that property and we do not think that it would be a good site for a future transportation line because of all the railroad tracks that are adjoining and right at that property.
Okay. It's U, or V would be Mr. Tent in the amount of $32,800. W would be the Triangle Safe and Lock in the amount of $22,355. And X is an estimated cost of $15 to advertise to get quotes for the machines. So those items are all been listed out. We have a motion and a second to approve all of that as I have just enumerated. So without any other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll move back to item G, consideration approval of contract for audit services.
Mr. Chairman, this was a recommendation of the audit committee on which Bud and I served, and it's our recommendation that we approve the auditor selected. And I believe that requires a second, it's a recommendation of the committee.
And the auditor would,
The auditor is Green Finney LLP for a total of 3 years for $119, and it lists out just how the prices go differently.
okay, we have a recommendation from the committee to approve the audit services to Green and Finney in the amount of $119,000. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And thank you to the folks who served on the audit committee to choose the auditor. All right, now we move on to item Y, consideration of requests for out-of-state or overnight student travel.
Take 2 steps there. Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we approve all the student travel as indicated and ratify those that have already taken place.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Wood. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to administrative divisional reports. First up is the instruction on the homeschool report. Mr. Hinton, or Doug?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. James, pleased to be here tonight to provide you some information on the homeschool report. As I understand it, each year the homeschool associations are required to send us information that we are required to then put together and send to the State Department of Education. So you have 2 pages. I think you have 2 pages. I haven't gotten to it. I see y'all looking too. There we go. So the first one is a breakdown of the associations in our district that have some of our students, and then provided for you as a list going back to 2000 different numbers.
Dixon, if you could, especially for new board members, sort of explain what this is, why we have to do this.
Well, and to be honest with you, I don't know a lot of the reasons why. I just know that, well, I know it's a requirement. Is it our requirement or a state requirement?
It's a state requirement that we know the children that are being schooled at home, because the state makes sure that they get a curriculum that should be equivalent to what they would get in a public school. And then if they enter into public school, we have to assess whether or not they're at the grade level that the parent says they are.
And they have deadlines to get information to us. We have deadlines to get to the State Department.
I think for some of the new board members, we've had issues in the past where there'll be parents who may do homeschooling to start with out of school, and then they get to a certain grade level, and then the parent may not be capable of actually giving them any instruction anymore, and they try to come into the school at a higher grade than really what they have been trained at home, and that ends up becoming our problem. It ends up reflecting negatively on us in our report cards, but the real effect is we can't control it.
Right. And that is true. We do have policies and procedures where those kids come back, where we do look at the transcripts and all that information to make sure we're not awarding credit that they don't deserve.
But if they come in, and let's say that they say, well, they've completed 5th grade, they should be going to 6th. And you look at the transcript and it looks like okay, but then they really struggle in 6th grade, that's still, we're going to be stuck with it, right?
Yes, sir. And one of the things we do is we normally test those students with STAR pretty quickly so that we can get some baseline based on something that we're real familiar with and use that. So we'll make some recommendations, but we do try and put them with their age-appropriate peers if that looks like that's the best thing to do for them. But you're right. It's a lot to catch up sometimes.
All right. Thank you. All right, next is student dashboards.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit at the board workshop about the student dashboards, and I told you at that time that I would bring you back some more information and to show you a little bit more. As I started digging a little bit deeper in that, of course, this dashboard does have student names. It has their different information, so it became apparent pretty quickly that it wasn't appropriate to show all of that in public for lots of different violations that we could do. So I have a few that I think this is live, and I want to say that Morgan has worked really hard on this, as I've said before, and we really are excited about this, and it is an ongoing process. And so he actually was making some tweaks this morning as we went. So you can see down there are 3 different dashboards. There's a high school dashboard, a middle school dashboard, and elementary. Obviously, our goal in creating this was to sort of keep track of all those things on the school report card that we are being asked to report, so that our administrators, so that we here at district office have some idea of where we're going, how we're doing, so there are no surprises for us. And so this is the high school one that I wanted to start with, and it's the end of course. So you can see Algebra 1, and at the top, you can see that there's filters. There's school, so you can drop down schools and pick the high schools that it applies to. The 9GR code is just the way that we have to report to the state those kids that are on the 4-year track to graduate. So 16 up there are current seniors. And so if you want to click on, yep, 16, this is 9GR 16. So these are our seniors. As we talked about as far as school report cards, our EOCs for the most part for these kids are, that boat has sailed. And so this is what it is. Not many of those kids will be taking any end of course exams. There might be a couple, but there shouldn't be many. But so this gives us an idea with that. Another one that I want to show you is the college ready. So Bridget, yeah, if you'll click on that, this sort of gives you, and this is back to district level, I believe. And you can see 9GRs and some of them are 0 because they haven't taken ACT or SAT or some of those. Bridget, you can scroll on down. Because you'll start seeing AP, the number of that have scored 3 or higher, those kind of things. So that gives us an opportunity to track that as well. Another one I want to show you live is the career ready metrics. And so this one is the WIN score. Again, there's some filters at the top. We get graded for those kids that get a silver or better on this one. And so you can see there's 2 different slides there so we can tell exactly how many kids are falling into each of those different areas. And then further down you have the K completers with passing certificate exam. And you'll see there's not a whole lot of them. That's because most of them become completers their senior year, and so they won't finish a lot of that until the end of the school year. ASVAB is the military test, and so quite honestly, this is an area where we're getting better, hopefully, in our high schools. We haven't done a whole lot of pushing kids to take the ASVAB, but now that it's being recorded, we are trying to do a better job of getting kids to take it, but then also putting those scores in, because that's not something that we had really been tracking too much. All right, so Bridget, if you'll switch over. So I wanted to show you some of this other stuff, but I wanted to be able to cover up student names as well as some teacher names later on. So looking again, another tab on that high school is college or career ready data. And so you can see this starts breaking it down by student. So they have all the filters where they can check for the ACT, how many of them have a 20 plus that's needed to qualify, SAT, that's where AP, all of those metrics are there. And then I believe that what you see here is a list of kids that are either college or career. They could be both, but this is just a way to help us track how many kids, because what we ask our high schools to do, administrators and guidance, is to keep a spreadsheet themselves at the school level where they're tracking 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade all the way through. So as soon as they make it in one area, they're marking it and keeping track of that. And so this is just another example of Morgan pulling that data for us. The next one I wanted to show you is the end of course. We saw the overall, that was a live one that I showed you. Administrators have the opportunity to dig a little deeper into the student. So this is where it's by student name and you can see what their grade was based on that EOC that they took. You might ask why some of them are missing some scores, like the third student on there has made a D on U.S. history, but there's nothing else recorded. Could be that they moved in. It could be that we're still looking for their scores. That's one of the things that Morgan did for me earlier today was we're constantly, the bad thing about this student dashboard right now is it is dependent upon Morgan to update the spreadsheet that it's pulling from. And he's pulling this information from Enrich. which is simply the same program that the State Department pulls information from. So we're trying to make sure that we're using the same information that they're using. The tricky thing is that, like we have Airport High School students that are on the semester schedule, so they took end of course, their scores haven't been loaded into Enrich yet because we haven't gotten what they call a clean file yet. When it gets that, it'll be entered and then those scores will show up. So there's a little bit of lag, which is why we've asked the schools to keep their own spreadsheet as well, so we can sort of keep track of it and double check each other. This is middle school. This also applies to elementary as well. This is SC Ready, ELA. Math looks very similar to this. You can see in the upper left-hand side, this is just two schools. You'll see that Fuller and Northside, it's all 3 grade levels. And then how they scored. So this helps us just sort of track. Now the thing that I do want to point out here to you is current grade level. And so what you see for 6th grade is not what happened at that middle school, but it is really their 5th grade scores. Does that make sense? So you have current grade level, but it's last year's test because it's SC rated. Okay? And then underneath that, they're able to dig deeper into the kids so they can see what level they were at, what percentile, as well as their sub-scoring. And then we also keep track of our STAR data. This is reading and math that we use. We use this to help us predict how students are going to do. It's not 100% by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a good ballpark for us. You can see in the right where it talks about the median student growth, that SGP. We're shooting for 50% here or better. A kid that is scoring 50 means that their growth is on target. They're getting a year's worth of growth. If it's above that, then they're getting more growth. So because our school report cards, we get points for growth, we also want to check this metric to make sure that we're seeing good growth, because hopefully that will translate into their growth from last year to this year.
Fixing to refresh my memory
Okay.
on how we view that chart that you've got up there for the STAR and the SC Ready. You've got blue is exceeds, then red is does not meet, but then green is meets.
All right, so you're asking about the order, I believe.
Well, I'm trying to, does it matter?
It's out of order as far as from the worst score to the highest score, you're right. The way it shows here is by the size of the group. And so that's not an area that Morgan can sort. We actually talked about this, but that's the only reason.
The idea would be you would eventually you want so you can say from here below this percentage is this and below.
Yes.
This percentage is this and above.
Right, and exactly. And if this were live, when an administrator rolls over the yellow, it tells them the number and the percentage. If they roll over the green, it tells them the number and the percentage. I just couldn't do that live for you because of the student names. But you're absolutely right. And then we also wanted to point out that we do monitor our little ones also. And so this is DRA on there. And so this is looking at CWIC, and it's looking for with elementary and K4, and it's looking at how they did last year's winter group to this year's winter group. So it is not the same group of kids. It is last year, this year, sort of like school report card is. And so here you can see that they went from 2.9 average on DRA to this year's 3.3, if I can read it right. And then the middle box helps us judge how many kids were on track in the middle of the year with the cut scores. And then the last one is the end of year cut score progress. So are they making that progress? The other thing on this one that is available in some of the other spreadsheets is that principals can look by teacher as well. And so they can sort of track how different teachers, students are performing. And then lastly, I found this one, I didn't even really know that this one was in there. I found this interesting, and I thought you would find this one interesting too. But we are required also to track our grad rate, and we've been doing that for many years. And so high schools have to keep track of a kid once they come into Lexington 2. If they go somewhere else, we have to have documentation to prove that they're not ours, they're somebody else's. And so in Power School, for our high schools, when they're entering the information, this is an easy way to pull where kids are going, when they're going. So it's just another check to the spreadsheets that they're already keeping. And I believe that's the last one. So if you have any other questions, I'll be glad to try and answer those.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the the monthly financial reports.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. James, you will first find your revenue summary as of the end of January. As I told you at the January meeting, we were expecting a rather large deposit for taxes, and we received over $13 million deposited for taxes that were collected in January. Any questions? Next report would be your expenditure analysis. Still, again, everything seems to be tracking on schedule. There's nothing out of the norm. Any questions on that one? Our next report, continuing that capital project commitment report that we provided last time, just trying to keep that updated so you can see real time where our amounts are. We're still a little over $5 million that is uncommitted. And this is with the referendum. Our last financial report is the People Activity Fund by school. Their available balances as of January 31st.
That's an improvement.
Ma'am?
That's looking better.
Yes, ma'am. I did want to make you aware of one thing. It's stuff that you've already approved, but I just wanted to make you aware we are going to be purchasing some vehicles. Tony Sargent in our transportation department is looking to purchase 3 vehicles. They're all in state contracts. It's a $91,000 total purchase. These are out of his people activity funds. It would not require your approval. It is revenue that he has generated. Just want to make you aware of that if you see vehicles on the road. We also are purchasing the activity bus that you approved in the CPIF for 18-19 and a cargo van that was approved in the CPIF for 18-19. So just making you aware that if you see them, that is the source of those purchases. We also have provided for you all at your places a budget update for 1920. I think Dr. James wants to address some of that information.
Marty and I have worked on this a lot. We've given you what we know at this point in time. Basically, it looks like we're going to have a change in terminology, but not necessarily a change in money. That's what it amounts to. Our understanding is the state will no longer use the term base student cost. Right now, what we're looking at is the general fund, the EFA money that would have been our base student cost money. The state is going to call that state aid classrooms. They're going to roll that in with funds for fringe. There'll be one allocation, $3,846 per pupil, or $46 per pupil is what we're looking at. The methodology of spreading that money around will be the same way as it always has been, based on weighted pupil units. those of you that have dealt with budgets for a long time know the state estimates the number of weighted pupil units and the amount of revenue. If there are more weighted pupil units than they estimate, then we get less money. If there are less weighted pupil units than they estimate, then we end up getting more money, but it's an estimation. The main thing I think for the board is not to get so much caught up in the terminology of whether you're talking about EFA or base student cost or aid to classrooms. Is the fact that there is no new money involved in any of this. House Ways and Means budget has allocated $159 million throughout the state to fund the new teacher salary. It's going to be allocated under a new account number. We think it'll be the same way as it has been in the past. It's part of the general fund account. The key is going to be, House Ways and Means says they're fully funding the raise, but that's actually not going to happen, and it would be very difficult. We've got impossible. I don't know that it would be impossible, but the bottom line is it doesn't take into account that most districts have a supplement within that district. So they're paying on the state money, but it doesn't have the local supplement, so we're going to have to pay that local supplement. So when House Ways and Means says fully funded, that's fully funded from the state money, but not from the local supplement. There's going to be some amount of money for the health increases, retirement increases, some SRO money, but basically all of the inflation things, power, water, utilities, our contracts, our maintenance, those kinds of things, there's no evidence that we're going to get anything at all on that. So when you hear 3846 and you compare that to 24, whatever it is now, it's not apples to apples. It's two entirely different numbers.
James?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know I can read, I just want to make sure I'm clear. What you're saying is that they're mandating the 4% on the total of the employee salary, even though the state only pays 60% or whatever of that. Of most of those salaries.
They're not paying the 4% on the local fund. Yes,
Which they never have.
right, that's exactly right.
But they've never made us have to do 4% across the board for the local supplement.
That's correct.
We've always had the option of just doing the 4% they mandate, which may result in a net 3%, but
That's
then
correct.
you're saying that now they're mandating 4%, we gotta do 4% on local share no matter what.
What
We don't have that
we
as an
have right now, and I mean, you build budgets as long as I have this thing, and you know that it's not over till it's over, but what we have right now from House Ways and Means is it'll be 4% on their salary, and that includes 4% of our local supplement. And you're right, in most years when you say there's going to be a 2% or 3% of whatever, typically it ends up being just a little bit less because there's not a mandate on the backside for the local. You're right. Marty, you're dealing with this every day, so.
The one thing I wanted to say is where our base student cost this year is $24.85, that they capped at $24.80. If you take today's weighted pupil units with this information right here, it put the base student cost at $24.67. So in actuality, it has gone down a little bit only because the number of pupils has gone up statewide.
Well, that typically happens about every year because they'll just lower the number of weighted pupil units to make it look better, so they don't have to lower the base student cost number. I figured that one out.
While there's no new money, we may not get exactly as much money as we received last year based on the statewide weighted pupil units.
But the 157 they're allocating, that's the new money, but we don't know yet what we might get of that.
Correct.
And how it might be earmarked.
It'll all be the teacher salary increase for the $159 million, our portion of that.
And that's an assumption that it'll just come out the same way as it always has. There's no guarantee to that, but there's no reason to think that it wouldn't. But of course, there was no real reason to think that we would do away with base student costs. So
Well, it would have, I mean, I'm assuming it would have some effect on how many teachers and what longevity they had, because that's different contributions for the state even, depending upon how a district's makeup is.
Which is what we're doing now. So what we've given you all is, we assume it's going to be allocated the same as it has been all along, that $159 million in new money. But the major thing that we need the board to know now, you're probably not going to hear the term base student cost out of the state. And you are going to hear the number $3,846. When you compare that to $2,460, it would appear that there's a huge increase in the old base student cost, when in actuality, there isn't. It's combining two lines of the budget into one line with no new money added to it. And like Marty said, in actuality, with the number of weighted pupil units in South Carolina, we'll actually get less money than we anticipated.
Any other questions? Okay. Is that it for that one?
Unfortunately, yes.
All right, so next on our agenda is executive session, so, entertain a motion. Oh,
Construction.
I'm not reading well, I was up late last night, I'm telling you. All right, give us the bill of progress report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, we have in your packet information about all of our projects that we currently have under construction. And I'm proud to say that we're nearing the end, but we're still tying up loose ends. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have on any information you've been provided. And again, we try to post these every month. So after you see them, we typically try to get them out there as quickly as we can.
Questions? All right, now, we'll move to executive session.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the Board of Trustees enter into executive session for the following: consideration of personnel appointments and resignations, consideration of property matters, consideration of contractual matters, consideration of two out-of-district tuition waiver requests, and consideration of student expulsion appeal.
Have a motion, have a second. Second on this case. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We're now in executive session.
How are you doing?